Hello and welcome to Session 4 of the CMF Kairos Security Briefing Series. In this session, we will focus on our interactions with the men in blue inside the prison. Although much of our team formation process over the last several weeks has focused on interacting with the men in blue and bringing them Christ's unconditional love, there are some specific security issues relevant to our interactions with them that we all need to be aware of. We will focus on 5 topics today. The first topic is what we call the outside context, or the issues that have shaped many inmates' upbringing and contributed to their incarceration. The second topic is what we call the inside context, some of the things the men encounter inside the prison that influence their reaction to our ministry. The third topic is called games inmates play, and the kind of behavior patterns that the prisoners often exhibit that can affect both table dynamics and also have security implications. The fourth topic is a set of hints and tips for you to avoid being exploited or taken advantage of by a particular inmate who might be inclined to do so. And finally, we will provide some other useful tips for interacting with the men in blue. With respect to the outside context, the socioeconomic background of the men with whom we interact is a significant factor, and it should not be surprising that most of these men come from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. There is data that indicates that 75% of state prison inmates did not complete high school. Furthermore, 78% of jail and prison inmates grew up without fathers, with all of the economic and psychological implications of that situation. The issue of abuse is also in play. 13% of male prison inmates have been physically abused, and 6% have been sexually abused. Mental health is another important element of the outside context for our work in the prison. 56% of state prison inmates have some symptoms of serious mental illness. 85% of inmates in state prisons and jails meet the diagnosis criteria for addiction or have a history of substance abuse. There is a poor attempt at humor making the rounds these days that the largest mental health facility in the country is the Los Angeles County Jail. There is a very high rate of mental illness and substance abuse among inmate populations. Since CMF is a mental health facility, and some inmates have been located here precisely because of the services available at CMF, some of these statistics are likely to be even higher at CMF than in the general prison population. Mental illness behaviors and the effects of the medications used to treat them may have an effect on table dynamics. This is something to be watchful for because it can be manifested in sleepiness, problems focusing, and even physical reactions, such as rocking or swaying back and forth. We cannot solve these problems, but we can do our best to take them into consideration as they arise and try to minimize their effects on our Kairos activities. Now let's address the inside context of our ministry, the environment in which the inmates live and in which we operate. In terms of race and ethnicity, the prison population is disproportionately African American and Hispanic compared to the general population of our country. There is peer pressure against racial mixing in the institution. However, how strongly this is enforced varies by institution. Historically, the housing units at CMF were segregated by race to reduce violence. However, as mentioned in a previous briefing, this policy was changed in 2008 due to a court ruling, and the housing units are now desegregated. However, tensions remain in many places. We strive for as much diversity as possible on our weekends, and we treat everyone with the same love and respect in an effort to defuse potential racial tensions and to teach men of different backgrounds to get along with and ultimately love one another. Gangs are also a significant problem in the California prisons, and perhaps are becoming an even greater problem as stronger linkages form between gangs inside the prison and outside the prison. Much of the concern about cell phones in prisons is not so much related to enabling escape attempts as it is to prevent prisoners from being able to call shots in their gangs on the street from inside the prisons. One of the reasons gangs are so powerful in the prison is that inmates often affiliate themselves with gangs for protection. Some inmates see this as a way to keep themselves a little bit safer. The issue of sexuality inside the prison is very complicated and does have an effect on our ministry at CMF Vacaville. If you are new to Kairos, it may surprise you to see amongst the male prisoners some who seem to have the physical features of women, including breasts, and you may wonder what's going on with them. These men are primarily transsexuals, men who are genetically and biologically male, but who, in terms of their internal mental dynamic, feel that they are women. One of the things that transsexuals sometimes do on the outside is to seek gender reassignment surgery, the first stage of which is to receive female hormones, which produce secondary gender characteristics, including breast tissue. The policy of CMF is that if any inmate has been initiated on hormone therapy prior to coming to the prison, they will continue this therapy, although they will not pay for the gender reassignment surgery itself. You may see examples of this on our weekend, and we love and welcome these individuals in the same way that we love and welcome everyone else we meet in the prison. These individuals are often particularly targeted for abuse and exploitation within the prison environment. They have a difficult time, making it even more important that we treat them as we would treat Jesus himself. The issue of homosexuality also crops up in the prison environment and can be different from its manifestations outside the prison. Many inmates who engage in same-sex activity do not self-identify as homosexual. Sex is a currency that can be traded inside the prison for protection or other favors. Men often pair up with other men to protect themselves from violence, including sexual violence. With respect to prison rape, 4.5% of prisoners in the United States in a recent survey reported being sexually assaulted in prison in the last 12 months. This scales up to 60,000 such incidents in the United States per year and could well be underreported. This helps explain why some men feel the need to seek protection from sexual violence. An issue we have encountered in the past is that of homosexual couples using the Kairos weekend as a pretext to spend time together, including time together in the men's room. This behavior is contrary to the rules of the prison, and we do not want to be a facilitator of these types of situations. If you encounter such activity, we do not want you to try to resolve the situation yourself, but rather to inform the weekend leader who will work with the chaplain to determine the appropriate course of action. Games inmates play. While not every inmate in the institution is working to game you or game anyone else, this issue is a reality of prison life. A key aspect of prison culture is a constant struggle for power and control between inmates and each other, between inmates and the correctional officers and prison administration. These men have very little control over their lives, and so they are constantly struggling to gain a little more control over their lives inside the prison. And this often plays out into conflicts with the prison authorities or anyone in a position of authority. There is a risk that as volunteers we could potentially become part of this power struggle. There are some prisoners who will test us to see if we can be manipulated into doing things for them. They may offer you some candy, which may seem very innocuous, but which could be intended to make you feel indebted to them or to feel compromised already and therefore ready to do something more for them that we should not be doing. They might also try to play on guilt feelings if they think that this would work to get you to do something for them. This is even an issue that the prison looks at extensively with respect to their own staff. They are very concerned about the staff being roped into this. What often happens is that if a prisoner can convince a staff member to overlook the rules in one situation, such as bringing something into the prison for them, then they have the staff person hooked because the threat of revealing that infraction can be used to blackmail the staff person into further violations of the rules. This is an issue we definitely need to be aware of and to guard against. We cannot afford to let the Kairos ministry get in the middle of these kinds of situations. So now we would like to provide you with a set of tips and lessons learned to help you avoid these kinds of problems. The first tip to avoid any kind of entrapment is to obey the rules and to be seen as someone who plays by the rules. If you come across as someone who disrespects the rules or is inclined not to obey them, this can get you marked as someone they want to target for potentially dangerous testing and pressure. A second and related tip is to show respect for authority, both towards the institution and Kairos. With respect to the institution, do not join in any bad-mouthing of the prison administration or any correctional officers. You can listen carefully and acknowledge their concerns, but you do not need to affirm these feelings. Here is a good example of where we need to listen, love, love. It is also important to show respect for Kairos authority, for our policies and procedures, and our way of doing the weekend. If a member of our leadership team comes to your table and asks you to do something and you respond after they leave with disrespect or cynicism, that will send a signal to the men on your table that it is okay not to follow authority, or that you yourself may be willing to violate the rules on their behalf. This can make you a mark, so please respect all authority while inside the prison. A third point relates to our policy of nothing in, nothing out. Another way of phrasing this is, do not accept anything from or give anything to an inmate. Even if it is something very small, such as a piece of candy or gum, it violates CMF rules and Kairos rules, and this small violation might be used to pressure you into more serious ones. You do not need to be harsh or defensive in your responses. All you need to do is say, "I'm sorry, but I cannot do that." Refusing to break the rules is not inconsistent with a loving and accepting approach to any inmate. Do not agree to do favors for inmates. Do not offer legal advice, particularly if you're not an attorney. Do not offer to contact people outside the prison or agree to do this if they request. What you can do if asked for favors is to refer them to the chaplain. You might even suggest that you both go to talk to the chaplain right now. This will almost always bring an end to the inappropriate requests because they already know what they can and cannot ask of others. Always remember that we are there for spiritual purposes, not as general problem solvers. Another important tip is to keep our personal information very general. We are open and honest with them, and we do share personal witness information in our talks or table discussions. But with respect to information that could help them locate you, be very general. When discussing where you are from, you should not share city or street information. Just say that you're from the East Bay or the South Bay. Do not say what company you work for. Just say, "I work in IT" or "I work in HR." If they persist in trying to get more details from you, this could actually be a red flag that this is a potentially risky person and conversation. Now we will cover a few tips for building good, productive relationships with the men in blue. Do not make promises that you cannot keep. Do not promise to come to a reunion if you cannot be there. These men have been let down a lot in their lives, and we do not want to add to this trend in their lives. Do not ask about their offense or pry into their private lives. Often they will share these things with you, but let them take the lead and do not initiate these kinds of discussions. Do not tell jokes. Humor is a very tricky thing, especially cross-culturally. Something you think is harmless may be offensive to someone else. Also, if you are telling a lot of jokes, You are sending a signal that it's okay for them to do so, and this can cause the table dynamics to diverge and degenerate from their intended spiritual purposes. Do not expect thanks from the inmates. Often we will receive it, particularly toward the end of the weekend, but we should not expect this from everyone, and we want to try to channel their thanks towards God for providing them with this opportunity. Do not be surprised by hostility. Some guys may show up on Friday night and even Saturday and wonder what Kairos is all about and what our motives are. They may also have issues with other inmates at their table or on the weekend. Do not react to hostility with fear, defensiveness, or hostility of your own. Do not let this throw you off your game. Again, remember our mantra, to listen, listen, love, love. Security problems can easily develop when we try to become problem solvers. We are a ministry of presence, and we should focus on this role. Most of us are not qualified to go beyond this Kairos role, and none of us are authorized to do so in this ministry. This is a reminder that all Inside team members must attend or view online all 6 of the CMF Kairos security briefings before the weekend you will participate on. Links to each of these security briefings on YouTube will be provided to all team members right after they are presented at team formation meetings. Our leadership team must be able to certify to the CMF administration that this has been done, and moreover, we want to maintain the excellent track record we have with CMF for following all the rules that apply to visitors in the prison and keeping the focus on unleashing the power of spiritual conversion that is inherent in the Kairos program and method. This concludes today's security briefing. Please join us next week as we conduct an overview of Kairos policies and procedures. Thank you very much for your attention.